the music, the tracks, the mixes and the great background score. Especially in the action sequences, rather especially in the final act of the very last sequence. It is absolute money. If you would only want to watch this movie for its final act, for the very last bit of the film, your money will be absolute worth it. Alright, so here is a brief backstory before we dive deep into the spyverse of Aditya Dhar. You see, one of the recent regrets I have had in the line of film and cinema is not watching Article 370 on the big screen. Now it could be partially because of my sheer disinterest from the Bollywood industry as a whole, and partially because of the very mediocre trailer. I mean, whenever I could see a glimpse of it, especially as a pre-roll or a mid-roll in one of my very own YouTube videos, I'll just skip it over and move on with my life. Weeks passed, months passed, the movie finally came on Netflix, I watched it, and what a regret I had. But, Dhurandhar felt quite different from the get-go. I mean, the pace, the tone, the gore, it all felt very enthralling for a theatre visit. So that's what I did. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is my honest take on this Aditya Dhar's apparent masterpiece. So, my name is Mayank Bhattacharya. This is Men's Essentials. Let's show. Now, before I dive in, here is a quick disclaimer. This review is going to be spoiler free. I'll not want to ruin your cinematic experience, but I'll also try to share as much as I can about this thing called Dhurandhar. Okay, so first thing first, this is a long movie. A 3-hour long movie. You can probably make it 3.5 hours with the interval break. But hey, even Oppenheimer, Lord of the Rings, and one of my 2024's cult favorite, Top Gun Maverick, was a 3-hour long movie. So the duration of a film doesn't bother me much. So long as it has been cut right, so long as it has been paced correctly, and so long as it has been produced well. And ladies and gentlemen, not to my holy surprise, Dhurandhar serves it quite well. So much so that in the very first 1/3 of the movie, I even felt the movie to be a little too fast paced for my taste or liking. Yes, a 3-hour long movie I thought was actually cut a little too fast when needed. But then it is what it is, so let's get to the very narrative. You see, Dhurandhar on its own, by the narrative, by the story, by the screenplay, is very self-aware. It is as grounded, as mature and as clear as a screenplay could get. But this does not make it all that very perfect. There were some instances, some cuts in the film that I thought could have been 15 seconds shorter or 5 seconds longer. But finding that sweet spot where you would want to convey an enthralling message but would not want to creep your audience out is a very difficult task as an editor and as a director. Now, speaking of tight and crisp, let's talk about the story, screenplay and the direction at hand. See, Aditya Dhar has made 2 epic movies in the past. Yes, they were melodramatic, yes, they were a bit over the top, but that's the very reason they did so well, or they strung a chord even with tier 1 audiences. I'm not saying this is going to be your arts military espionage movie. You're going to expect something like Argo from it. This is not even trying to be that kind of a film, because this film is loud, it is on your face, but it is so much better than the average shit spyverse you get from the average movie production houses in this country. And that's probably the reason I have lost my interest from the films altogether until this thing came about. And then when it comes down to directing it all and putting it all in one piece and making it all seem so flawlessly, that's where I think Aditya Dhar truly shines at his absolute best. I mean, sure, there has been this renaissance of Akshay Khanna of late. There has been a renaissance of a lot of great actors, Bobby Deol and likewise, in this recent phase, but you wouldn't have seen them do their bit to this epic extent. I remember Agnipath and Sanjay Dutt were one great thing. I remember some other movie. I remember Arjun Rampal in that film called D-Day, where he himself was playing a raw agent and he did a great bit in it. But when you would see them in this film and the kind of roles, the kind of characters they have pulled off, courtesy the direction and the clarity of a director called Aditya Dhar, it is absolutely bloody impeccable. Yes, we could point out a few fingers at the screenplay or the pace of the film, but that I feel is more of a post-production issue and less of a directing or screenwriting issue. Because these guys, when you would see them in their character, you would see them immensely lost in their bit and giving their absolute 200% for it. That's rare, and that's something we all have been craving from Bollywood since so bloody long. Akshay Khanna has been a thorough star throughout the movie. The kind of charisma and charm he can portray, I think it's second to none. Madhavan, playing a character inspired by our NSA and our former IB chief, Mr. Ajit Doval. The kind of tehrav, the kind of maturity and the kind of grounding he has, especially in a scene where he's confronting someone, where he's negotiating with someone, it is absolute impeccable. I think that's one of the other reasons I actually enjoyed this movie a hell of a lot more than what I was expecting it to. I thought it to be an action spy thriller, but this turned out to be a hell of a lot more dramatic and then some action and thriller. There are scenes between Madhavan and the Foreign and Defense Ministry which are absolutely epic. There are scenes between Arjun Rampal, Akshay Khanna and of course our Ranveer Singh which are absolute epic. These are not action sequences, these are not some fight stunt choreography, these are pure dialogue and drama. And since that dramatic conversation has been directed and filmed so well, you would feel the sheer goosebumps even without anybody raising their hands or throwing their damn punches. That's one bit where I think Aditya Dhar is highly underrated or not being called for. I mean, we have seen a glimpse of it in Article 370. There wasn't much of action in that movie, but the whole drama that it had, the whole build up to the climax that the movie had was absolutely stunning. And I would say some heart of it, some half of it or a bit of it, you can see even in this thing called Dhurandhar. So yes, for my taste, for my liking, I absolutely adored the direction and the screenplay of the film. My issue was with the post-production though. I mean, yes, like I said, this was a 3-hour long movie and like a typical Aditya Dhar movie, he has cut this movie into different chapters. And to what I remember, there are around 6 chapters in the movie. Now, I think, in my honest opinion, these 6 chapters should have rather been 4 chapters. Because I personally feel the first 3 chapters, which is probably only 25-30 minutes in the movie, feels a little forced, feels a little too fast for my taste and liking. Only if the editors could have just not made those 3 chapters and would have made it all in one single chapter, and then they would have made chapter 3 to be the second chapter and then the follow-up chapter, it would have made so much more narrative sense. It would have kept the pacing tight, yet gave it some room to breathe and think through. But that's just my personal liking, that's just my personal taste. I know for a fact that this movie is going to do really very well in tier 2 audiences, and tier 2 audiences might want that extra adrenaline chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3 within the first 30 minutes of the film. I get it, if that's the goal, they have hit it really well. The cinematography is fantastic, the production and the set design, the amount of time and money that would have been invested in creating such magnetic, majestic pieces. I think they have made it all in Thailand and some places in Chandigarh is absolute batshit crazy. This is what the audience wants from the Indian spy thrillers. They would want authentic, brute reality of what it takes to be a spy in a foreign enemy land. But now that we have spoken about cinematography and set design, I cannot forget and not talk about the epic sound design, the music, the tracks, the mixes and the great background score, especially in the action sequences, rather especially in the final act of the very last sequence. It is absolute money. If you would only want to watch this movie for its final act, for the very last bit of the film, your money will be absolute worth it. Because that sequence, that epic finale sequence on its own is a masterpiece of stunt choreography, background mixing, editing, pacing, everything. The whole bit comes together, the whole movie comes together in that final act, which is what probably makes this movie so nice, that this movie had a smile on people's face. Not because this was a funny, light-hearted family movie, but because the money was worth it. They had a jolly good time watching all that blood and glory, watching Ranveer Singh being Ranveer Singh after so long, and the amount of work he has done upon himself to be this Ranveer Singh that you see on screen is absolute crazy. People were smiling for the fact that Arjun Rampal, probably one of the most underrated or underused actors in the industry, could look this good without even being a formal trained actor. People were smiling at the competence and the diligence of R. Madhavan. People were smiling at the sheer charm and charisma of this underrated man, which is finally coming to its full power, called Akshay Khanna. This film was such a fresh breath of air from Bollywood that we have been wanting for so long. I mean, actors like Ranveer Singh and Sanjay Dutt, these two top guys in the movie, they barely had any dialogues in the film, but that's the very beauty of it. Even with the least amount of talking that they did in the movie, their presence and their character was so appropriately portrayed that you could feel the tension whenever you could see them on screen. That's the beauty of good direction, and that's the beauty of making actors work in your commanding direction. I had a great time watching this movie. This will probably be an easy 3.8, 4 out of 5, a 7.8, 8 out of 10. You will have a fantastic time. You will have a smile on your face. And yes, there'll be a little surprise at the very end, all of which will make so much more sense once you watch it on the big screen, as one would say. But in case you liked this video, in case you would want me to share more of my opinions on films, series, or anything of this sort that excites me or that interests me, then my friend, please do not forget to let me know in the comment section. I had a fun time watching it and I had a fun time talking about it because this was something I was finally excited to see after a very long time. Now, in case you would want to help out the channel, you can do it in two different ways. One is you can go to our menswear brand called TMB Basics and try out our sexy menswear items like this white Oxford shirt, linen shirts, polo t-shirts and things of that nature. You can even get a special discount if you use the code Hind10. And the other way you can help out the channel if you don't want to invest in classic menswear is by liking this video, putting your thoughts down in the comment section and by subscribing to the channel. I hope you would have had a fun time watching it and I hope you would let me know your thoughts in my DM or the Instagram. See you in the next one. Jai Hind. Take care.